So what would be a situation where you don't feel confident?
Well, I did have a situation a couple weeks ago. I'm just now getting back into the dating after a divorce.
Okay.
So it was just the fact that I stepped out of a comfort zone to, go out again. And I had a long talk with a certain person, and I felt safe enough and, to go out and hang out. And that's all it was supposed to be. But in the end, it was something else expected of me because after I talked to the person again, the whole vibe and energy of the person changed towards me. And so it was
Mm,
almost like to say, because I didn't do this or I didn't give this, then you're not worthy to be my friend again, or I'm not going to talk to you anymore. So I'm learning to stick up for myself and not be a people pleaser and do what somebody else want me to do. But
yeah.
I did have a few moments where I felt like, well, should I have done that? Maybe if I had did that. But I had to say no, because if that person said they understood your story, you had a long 3-hour conversation with them, and their mouth said that they understood, that they respect you, and you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But the heart did something else. It was like their
Yeah.
heart was far from that when the action or the actual reality came to play. So
Right.
it's like intentions and reality was at odds with one another. And it started making me doubt myself. Then I had to say, no, you did the right thing.
Right.
And I felt for the first time in my life, I felt good that I didn't do something that I didn't want to do, trying to people please or keep somebody. So that's
Oh
what I
my
want to
goodness.
share.
Oh my goodness, that is so great. I'm so happy for you that you found that. I mean, a lot of this work, people say, wow, I feel like I'm keeping my own counsel for the first time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
person was 72 when she said that. So,
Yes.
a number of people have said that. So, as you start to question the thinking that says, what happens when they have a judgment, what you find is it really is okay for them to be over there believing what they're believing about you,
Right.
but we're so primed to be people pleasers, to placate, especially if anyone is shame driven or fear driven. And that
Mm-hmm.
plugs us into a place where we're really little. We honestly don't always have a strategy to deal with that. And we think, uh-oh, something's wrong with me. I should have done it differently. And so we go in and beat ourselves up and lose confidence in our own judgment and trusting what we knew to be true for ourselves. So really excited
Yeah.
about that. And I want
Yes.
you to go to the place where in the moment, before you had that great conversation with him, and it's really important, by the way, with this work where you go back to situations, and that does not mean you're dredging up the past. That means we are cleaning up the past. We go back to a situation when you were fully believing the thought that you needed him to see you differently. You needed him to not want those things he was wanting. So what would you say is a thought if I need him to, right when you were in the thick of it, and you were either mad at him or judging him for being the way he was being. Once you stopped judging yourself, then you just kind of flipped it over and said, wait a minute,
Mm-hmm.
he's the one who's screwed up, and it doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be either one. We get to this I'm okay, you're okay place. That's not this
Mm-hmm.
teeter-totter thing. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
it's the worst that's ever happening is that someone is believing their thinking. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're all innocent since we didn't create the thinking. You
Right.
can see him over there believing it and not have to take it personally. And
Right.
these little wounds go way back. So what would you say is I need him to what?
I need him to see my worth.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. And in the moment, also everybody try, yeah, that can be a really nice, grand, universal statement, but it works best if you see it right in a moment. Like someone mentioned needing their husband to stop drinking. So if you work
Mm-hmm.
from a moment when
Well,
you
I say
have,
I need him to stop being, it was a word that I used, being salty with me. I felt like when I talked to him, like afterwards, I felt like a saltiness or a dry. I need him to stop being dry with me. That's it. I need him to stop being dry with me.
I like these words, dry, salty, like it makes me want, I got like saltine crackers in mind, you know? So anyway, no, it's really good. Like we could do a whole nice, deep, fleshed out worksheet. Oh my goodness. And you can't believe how much your life can change after if you do one on the situation where you were with him, one on the situation later where you're laying awake that night and your mind is spinning. And you can really just, that's where I say you let the mind see the errors of its own logic, and it's really great. The one thing I do want is for you to have your statement written down. I need blank to blank. So let's pick the one that said, I need him to see my self-worth. Do you have a moment in time when you really felt that way?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't even have to tell us, just hold that moment in your mind. Okay, so then the first question, and this is just a yes or a no, you need in that moment, in that situation, you need him to see your worth. Is it true? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. And everybody answer a yes or a no if that's what, is that what you need right in your situation, right in that moment that you need them to blank. And then question 2 is, you need him to see your worth. Can you absolutely know that that's true? Can you absolutely know that that's what you needed in that moment?
Not in that moment. Maybe not so. That might just been my
Yeah.
thing.
So yeah, I love that this question too kind of loosens the thought a little more. You know,
Yeah.
the mind is
That's
like
what that's what I thought. That's what I
yeah.
think.
Well, then that's what you think is everything. That's your
Yeah.
world is what you think. So if
Yeah.
that even loosens a little bit, if your
Yeah,
mind's
it
going,
does.
you're all over there in his business deleting. I'm not okay unless he sees my worth. And he's a
Yeah.
worthless human being unless he sees my worth. So
Right.
you're not seeing his worth in that moment either.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So question 3, then go back into your situation. This is meditation. I couldn't do any other kind of meditation until I learned how to do this. So question 3 is, see yourself right in that moment. Camera on you, off of him and on you. How do you react? What happens when you believe the thought, I need him to see my worth?
I block them. Shut down.
Yeah, what do you think of him in that moment? How do you treat him, even if only in your mind?
Well, I guess I treat him salty and dry too.
Perfect. Like I said, when you do this work, you will find how you're treating yourself and others exactly how you thought they were treating you.
Yeah.
Maybe only in that moment. Maybe you're never salty and dry in all the rest of the world, which is why he is the Buddha. He's your great teacher. He can shift you over into saying, not lovable.
Right.
Doesn't deserve warm, fuzzy, squishy. I'm going to be salty and dry with him. So where do you feel it in your body? Like in that moment when you felt like, oh, what's going on? You know, he's not standing up for me. He's not seeing my worth. Where do you feel that? Was it like a kicked in the stomach feeling, or your heart?
Yeah, my heart, like anxiety, in my heart, kind of feel like a heaviness, a sadness.
Yeah, and this is somebody who's a friend already, right?
Already, yes.
Yeah, so that's big. The stakes are high. That's where we really go into this level of woundedness. So how do you treat yourself when you believe that you need him to see your worth?
I had to really, the initial feel, like I said, I felt the anxiety, the heaviness in my heart. So initially I started seeing myself about to treat myself like in a depressed way, like kind of sulky, standoffish, not all excited and happy, kind of reserved and stuck in the corner somewhere feeling. But I started becoming self-aware of that. Like I saw myself doing that to myself. And I said, come on, girl, you can do this. I mean, this is not true. You're okay. You know, you can push past this. So I felt like I had to push myself out of going back into that place with myself. I had to push out of it.
Wow, you're like a pro at this. Being able to describe this really is, so many people get caught in their story and they still keep using the second pronoun word. Well, when he did this and he did that, I was like, no, this is about how do I react to what happens. And you really took your inventory there in a big way. Taking your inventory is something that's used a lot as a term in 12-step programs. And that's why this work has people in 12-step programs just take off like crazy, because suddenly you not only take your inventory, but you do it without any blame or shame. And you're able then to also turn it around. So in order to convince your mind that it's not him, but it's what you're thinking about him that causes the pain, it really helps them to go into question 4. Exact same situation. He doesn't do anything different. But who would you be without the thought, I need him to see my worth?
I don't know who I would be. That's why I told my friend in 2022 with my thoughts, I want to see what life looked like on the other side of these kind of thinkings.
Oh, yeah, you're in the right place then. Yeah, that's
I want to see. This is right where you have me is where I've always been. I've got to this point, but now I want to see what does it look like to get the other side of this fear or the other side of this push pull with myself. Because I don't want to keep doing the same thing year after year, not with this or myself.
And I did for the longest time, and I did not think there was a way out or of my regret health thing, but there is, and that's why I named it self-solidarity. But yeah, I don't know if you saw our New Year's email said, let 2022 be the year you fall madly in love with yourself.
With yourself, yes.
And for me, that's the end of fear too, of aging, of being alone, of even of health problems, because you're gonna, whatever hurts is your path. This is the heart of the spiritual journey. This is where the rubber meets the road. So you have the most amazing, beautiful intentions, Monica, to want that, because that makes everything else go well. So, and I also love your answer. You don't know who you would be. So many of us are so caught up. One of the kinds of thoughts we'll learn about tomorrow, and that I'm inviting someone else from one of our groups to come and talk how much it changed, is being over in other people's business. Sometimes we never did keep our own counsel. We were always monitoring ourselves based on that external validation. So we don't even know who we would be without that.
Right.
But you can imagine that if you were the Monica that had that, so in your same situation, you wouldn't have necessarily shut down so much, maybe.
Right.
Or you might have seen him over there believing his thoughts, but it didn't really have that much to do with you.
Right. That are taking responsibility for someone else's instead of being my own place.
That is the personality. I call it the pretzel person, and bending over backwards. And we are part of our roles. We take way too much responsibilities for others' reactions to us. And we believe we need to change. Yep. So then we're going to real quickly do the most simple kind of turnaround with this thought. In this work, we have 3 turnarounds: to the self, the other, and the opposite. So we're just going to turn this around to the opposite. It was, I need him to see my worth. Well, no, we're turning it around to the self too. Let's do, I need me to see my worth. Yep. So in that moment, it's just not about him. You're the one who left yourself. So you're the one who
Right,
you would need to come home.
right.
And we've been doing it since we were really little, but we can go back and heal that stuff. You can work a childhood situation when you were 6 and imagine, what did you come to believe in that moment? And then you realize you were always just a divine spark, and that you probably were more spiritual than whoever was the big reactionary person over there, and you realize there never was a problem, except that your mind came up with a condition that said, I need them to be different, I need me to be different. And yet, life is supporting you exactly. So you left yourself way back then. All of us did. It's like the Garden of Eden.
The Garden of Eden.
We took a bite of the tree of knowledge we thought we knew, and that took us out of a conversation with God, which is life unfolding as it is. So yeah, without that thought, yeah. So give me an example of how it was more you that needed to see your own worth in that moment than him.
I guess I realize now that that's been my fight all my life, is knowing my worth. So I guess I have shifted the blame on somebody else, because that really has been my fight. That has been my struggle and my tussle.
Yep. So
not knowing my own worth.
You're going to love it tomorrow when you find out about these. Comparison and competition is one of the kinds of thoughts where your own worth was only diminished by comparing it to another or a standard or a mind made, so it's, and then what we didn't know is how to debunk those. So we believed it. We believed we were less than. There isn't,
You see, and then I had a pastor when I got the divorce some years ago. He told me that I was going to be cursed. So every time something would happen, every time something looked like it's not good, I always had that belief: am I cursed? Am I cursed? So not only thing with the worth part, I guess I take it all the way back to the things that were said to me. You're not good enough. You're going to be cursed. All those things, those beliefs that I took on.
And everybody's got those, even if you weren't told specifically. The mind often comes up with them. I need me to see my worth. And then the other turnaround to the other, that was the turnaround to the self, the turnaround to the other. And this, by the way, what we're doing here is the work of Byron Katie, which is just a part of the No Matter What Way. I'm not really teaching you this work right now, but just showing all of you. I'm hoping that you're working your own situations. So I need me to see my worth. The turnaround to the other is I need me to see his worth. So it turns out that when our hearts are hurting and we feel that separation and alienation from another, it was never anything they did. It's that we closed our hearts, because really we are just love, and anything less than love is gonna hurt. So if you're judging him or holding his head higher than yours, so can you give me an example of how you didn't see his worth in that moment? How you?
I guess I have to put a pin in that one and process, because I never realized that I wasn't seeing his work because I was just so busy, I guess, dealing with what I was feeling or how I was seeing it. And I never did think about his worth.
Yeah, but on some level, probably later when you got upset with him for not being there for you, that's when you really diminished his worth and thought, what a shallow guy or whatever. But even in that moment, when you had him as the validator of you, like, I'm only okay if he sees me as okay. You're kind of like really using him. He's not himself anymore. He's just somebody there to prop you up. So that's kind of maybe an example of sort of a subtle way. It was like it was all about you right then. And, you had no clue about what struggles he was dealing with in that moment, or that he
Right.
was a human, so that's what we do. Our brains are eclipsed by these needs. So once we start to know how to deal with them and be the one who stands with, by, and for ourselves, no matter what, be the one that helps ourselves out with the stinking thinking, we are so much more available for others too, but in a way that we're not all tangled up with their stuff. But this last one is where I think everybody can get a really big shift, even if it hasn't worked for you yet, is the opposite. So I don't need him to see my worth. What's an example of how your mind told you in that moment that you needed him to see your worth, but now that we look back at it, can you find some examples of how you really don't need that?
Yeah. Like I said, I think I'm going back to what you said about get back and minding my own business. Like I'm saying, learning how to see what's the other side of this for me on how I feel about my own worth,
Right.
and not trying to put the blame or shift it to him, just put it back on my side so I can see something different that I haven't seen before.
Yeah, and it's kind of like this. It's like we've got our little kid needs that are still driving the bus, even though we're in a grown-up body, all those places where our development got arrested along the way. And of course, a lot of people out there have had tons of inner child work and stuff like that, but this is still different than that, because this is really just like nailing it. It's so efficient where you can help. Once you see through the errors in the logic of that child's thought, you can't believe that thought anymore. So the next time you hear your head going, I need them to see my worth, you'll chuckle. You won't really believe that one anymore now that we've done this work on it. So
no more of that.
But the opposite, and sometimes you will believe it too. It's not like you'll be told. You can go down to different layers, but the 100% turnaround for this that I love, all of us can, by the way, find examples. And if we were really doing this work, you would try to find 3 examples of how you don't need him to see your worth. You don't need him to because you're still here. You don't need him to because you put on matching socks, is what Byron Katie always used to say. You don't need him to because he didn't. And that's the big one. You don't need him to unless he does. So I love that thing of how do we know what we need? We look and see what we have, because that's reality. That's all that's here. And that doesn't mean that reality won't change in the next moment, or that we can't ask for something different or take action. But in that moment, what you see is what you get. And it's only the argument that separates. So everybody just do your turnaround. I don't need blank to blank because they're not, at least not in that moment. I don't need them to until they do. I don't need them to unless they do. Maybe he will never see your worth in that specific way. And that's what happens in marriage a lot. We might be getting our needs met a whole lot, but our mind gets really focused. Like my husband used to just do this one-handed hug thing. And it was like a test. My mind would be like, I just need him to hug me with both hands. It didn't matter all the other things that he was doing. But that was the one that my mind would be. That was the test. But in a way, when I turn that around, I see I needed to hug myself with both hands. I was always 1 foot over in his business, waiting to be validated. So, all right, everybody.